Good morning everybody, welcome back to a new video. Today is Friday and I am working from home. We are actually waiting to hear back from our solicitor today about something not very exciting. We may or may not have to pull out of buying our new flat, which is obviously really upsetting and really stressful. I'm trying not to get upset about it. Hope for the best. We honestly thought everything would be fine once we got the mortgage through. Like, we didn't foresee any other issues. So this happening now has been a real spanner in the works. Maybe sit down later on in this video and fully explain exactly what's happened. A lot of people don't know about this legal loophole around buying leaseholds. We certainly didn't know about it, and I think more people should be aware. Yeah, I'm really hoping we'll hear something back today. Yeah, I'm gonna go log on to work and try and distract myself. If you haven't already and you want to see more of the buying process, please make sure you subscribe down below. It is now lunchtime. I've just been informed that actually the solicitor phoned Matt yesterday, which I was not aware of. It wasn't really anything significant. There was no real update. They're still chasing for this information from the seller's solicitor. I also have a delivery coming today. Bought myself a housewarming gift for the house that we don't have yet. So yeah, I'm hoping that arrives soon. I can show you. Yeah, we're gonna make some lunch. Such a gorgeous day. Not a cloud in the sky. So this is lunch. Pita wrap with Greek salad, and Matt bought some vegan ham. Not really sure why, because we're not vegan, but it's quite nice. Greek salad, feta, spinach, and homemade tzatziki. I'm having a little falafel. Hi guys, I am coming to you from my bedroom floor. Quite a long time since those previous clips were filmed, probably longer than I care to admit. But basically it was a long, drawn out and painful process, but we did ultimately have to pull out of buying our flat. I really wanted to sit down and explain exactly what happened because it was such a stressful situation, and this is a piece of legislation that I think is not talked about anywhere, and a lot of people are not aware of it. From the research I've done, I realised that even solicitors find this piece of legislation very, very hard to navigate. So I'm going to try and explain as best I can and as clearly as I can. So hopefully this will help someone else if you're considering buying a flat. I have my laptop here. I just want to get up the actual legislation so I can be as clear as possible. What I'm going to talk about is relevant if you're buying a leasehold in a high-rise relevant building. First of all, if you don't know what a leasehold is when you essentially buy the right to live in that property. You're essentially buying the flat or the apartment, but you do not own the building, you do not own the land that building is on. That would belong to the freeholder. So typically you pay a mortgage on the leasehold, which is the flat or apartment, and you also pay a certain amount of ground rent to the freeholder. You might also pay a service charge for maintenance of that building, but that's a separate thing. The piece of legislation I am referring to is called the Building Safety Act 2022, which was brought in as a response to the Grenfell Tower disaster. And it was brought in ultimately to stop leaseholders being charged for cladding remediation. Definition of a relevant building under the Building Safety Act is at least 11 metres in height or has at least 5 stories, contains at least 2 dwellings, is not a leaseholder owned building. The flat we were buying was in a 6th floor apartment block. The one we were buying wasn't that high, it was on the 3rd floor. Doesn't matter. The building is 6 floors, therefore it's a relevant building. It contained at least 2 dwellings. Yeah, it probably contained 100. It was not leaseholder owned building, it was owned by the freeholder. On the 20th of June 2022, the Leaseholder Protections in the Building Safety Act came into force. Qualifying leaseholders will pay nothing to remove dangerous cladding, and the amount they can be asked to contribute to fixing other historical building safety defects is firmly capped. So it's essentially a protection against leaseholders from having to pay for any problems with the building. So as of the 14th of February 2022, anyone who owned a leasehold at that time either became a qualifying leaseholder or a non-qualifying leaseholder. To become a qualifying leaseholder, your property was in a building 11 metres, 5 stories or more, and you owned it on the 14th of February 2022. Your property had to be your main home, or if it was not your main home, you owned no more than 3 UK residential properties in total. If those things applied to you, you automatically became a qualifying leaseholder, which meant you were protected against any of these sort of cladding remediation costs. If it was not your main home and you owned more than 3 properties in the UK at that time, you were a non-qualifying leaseholder, which means you are at risk of being liable for certain costs. So the person we were buying from at that time owned the property on the 14th of February 2022. They were a property investor, so it was not their main home. They were renting it out to someone else. And because they were a property investor, they owned probably a lot more than just 3 properties in the UK. That meant that they were a non-qualifying leaseholder, they were potentially liable, and the thing that really gets me and confuses me is that when we would go to purchase this property from them in 2025, we would inherit their status, whether they were qualifying, non-qualifying. We would purchase that property, and because the person we were buying from was a non-qualifying leaseholder, we automatically would be non-qualifying leaseholders. Again, this legislation isn't very black and white. It's very confusing. I have found that even estate agents don't understand it, and solicitors don't fully seem to understand it, or at least the ones I've spoken to. That is what I came to understand, was that if we purchased this property, we would be non-qualifying leaseholders. And although the property we were the property we were buying was built in 2021, quite a while after Grenfell. It had all the necessary certifications to say that there was no dangerous cladding and that the building was safe. So we weren't necessarily too worried about remediation costs or cladding, but if there were any other historical problems with the building, like, we could potentially be liable. But the biggest thing for us was, when we want to go and sell this property in a couple of years' time, the next people probably won't want to buy it off us because they won't want to take that risk either, and we would potentially end up losing money on the property. We sort of knew at the start of this video that the person we were buying from was very likely a non-qualifying leaseholder. We were just waiting for a long time for confirmation of that, and then our solicitor sort of sat on the fence, didn't want to tell us one way or the other. But ultimately we decided that we were going to pull out of the sale, and we just didn't want to take the risk. I would rather wait for hopefully a qualifying leasehold to come around, and we would just sleep a bit easier at night. I've seen a lot of forums and Facebook groups of people who are in these situations that are non-qualifying leaseholders and are stuck in buildings that have dangerous cladding. They can't afford to pay for the remediation costs, and they can't sell their property and move on because no one wants to buy it. And they're basically stuck in this stalemate of who's going to pay for this remediation, living in what is potentially an unsafe building. And there are still thousands of properties across the UK that are covered in this unsafe cladding, and it's just really sad, and my heart goes out to people who are in those situations, and if that's you, I'm really sorry. But yeah, that was just our experience. We are still looking for a leasehold. We haven't ruled them out. We've weighed up a lot of the pros and cons of leaseholds, and for us it makes sense to get on the property ladder. I think for a lot of young people it's one of the only ways. Hopefully we can, you know, save up and buy a freehold later on. Yeah, I just really wanted to share that piece of information. I hope it made sense. If you've had any experiences with this, then please comment down below, let me know, or any advice you have would be great. I hope if anyone else is going through the same thing that you know, it's not too stressful. That's it. That's all I wanted to share for now. Hopefully better days ahead. We do have some other prospects already, so hopefully we will find our dream apartment very soon. I hope you will subscribe and come along on the journey with us. It really helps me out as a small creator if you subscribe. Leave like a like down below. Like a like if you leave a like down below. I'll hopefully see you in my next video. Bye!